Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. My partner steps away, as normal. And what is left from the best of his ability is a clearance that allows for information to come in that's almost pure, sustained intuition. You might say that is channeling. It is the fourth channel, as I say, of the series which you call Discovery. And so this discovery is going to be entitled The Immensity of the Old Soul. And I'm going to paint a picture and give a list of why it is that we say that there is so much here in the room, those listening, when we say the word old soul. Because history is history, and because the human race itself has developed a consciousness which is fairly low, the old souls really don't know they're old souls. There is an intuition that will tell them they are, but they don't have the proof of it, for they don't remember. The human being comes into the planet with a consciousness that is not complete. And we have said this before. This is the teaching, that a higher consciousness is something that you are starting to evolve into. And we have given you some of the attributes of that evolvement. But it isn't here yet. It is only beginning. The beauty of the shift is that now you are awakening into the light, a place that will support this kind of evolution. The evolution of wisdom, compassion, love, knowledge, into something that we have seen before in other parts of your galaxy. We have seen it. We tell you it is there. Its ability for humans is there. And the free choice that you have will control the timing. But it's almost like a snowball that you cannot stop unless it hits a tree. That it has momentum. A momentum that we have seen before. And that is what the teaching has been. But dear ones, you arrive on this planet with a low energy that doesn't remember this. None of it. You may have lived 1,000 lives. You may have had all of the knowledge, the wisdom that 1,000 lives will give you, and you awaken and it's a blank. It doesn't carry in. Because that would be a high consciousness. And that is something that you will develop. Children being born generations from now will be totally different than when you arrived. They will be totally different than the children that are arriving now. So different over a period of time that history will take a look and rewrite some of the things they thought they knew about consciousness itself, about discipline for children, about education. What do you do with a group of children that start remembering how to read before they're ever taught? What do you do with a group of children that seems to intuitively know things they've never been shown? This is the evolution of the human race. And that is that the wisdom from the past lives that they may have had, whether it's 3 or 3,000, starts to show itself very early in their lives. You're not there yet. but in some ways you are. For in this group of listening old souls, all of the knowledge and the wisdom of the past and what you've learned that works and doesn't work is inside you. And so, as we said early on, old souls alive right now are beginning to have the sparks of remembrance. But I want to tell you what you're remembering. I want this to be a celebration of the immensity of the old soul, of the strength that is presented here in the chairs and those listening that call themselves old souls, beyond your wildest expectations of who you are. It's a celebration. It's not a teaching session, not now. This is a meditation. It's a celebration. I want you to listen. Don't space out on this one. I want you to listen. Imagine for a moment that human beings could be brought back from any time in history, reanimated at the highest level that they existed in, no matter what age they were. They could be brought back. And you're going to select who is going to be brought back, and you're going to put them around a round table. Let us start with the leaders of the centuries. Let us start with the finest politicians that ever lived, that became leaders, presidents, prime ministers, even kings, that were beloved by those around them for what they could put together and do. Kings in the past that were kings for tens and tens of years because the people loved them, were careful of their health, wanted them to sustain the realm because they were so good at what they did. They existed. Leaders of countries who were so beloved because they knew what the people wanted and they loved the people and understood the people. They existed. Presidents and prime ministers where the people wished they could continue and continue because they were good at it and because the country was never more prosperous than at a time when they existed. They led well. They understood well. I want you to examine how many would there be? A lot of them. And you're going to bring them back. One by one they arrive with everything intact they ever had. This ability to sense how to arrange things, to make things work in a benevolent way so that those who elected them or those who were subjects of them would say, I hope this man or woman lives a long time. And here they are, and they take their seat at the round table. And now they're looking at you. They want to know why they're there. And you say, wait a minute. There's another group. And the next group are going to be the finest philosophers that ever existed. The ones who could think above those who could think, who were profound in all that they did. And they take their seats at the table. And every generation has had them. Even the history before history had them. And they look at the kings and the leaders. They say, it's quite a group here. We'll philosophize about why they're here in a moment. What are we here for? And you say, wait, there's another group. And you involve the artists and the songwriters of time who wrote the most prolific lyrics about love, beauty, the ones that made your heart sing. And they come in one at a time and they take their seat and the table gets larger. Automatically, by the way. The more who sit there, the larger the table becomes. Group after group of the wisest and the best, and the last to take their seats are the masters of time. Who are the greatest masters of peace on this planet, of spirituality on this planet, who ever lived? Ones that could change physics with their minds, heal people at a touch, or perhaps just had the mastery attribute where the people loved them for their wisdom. And they show up and they take their seat. Now you have a table brimming with amazing wisdom and power and grace, knowledge and wisdom, beauty. They look at you and they say, "What are we here for?" And then you said, "I want you all together to guide us through the next millennium." I just gave you one old soul. One old soul. If you've lived thousands of lives, you've been at least one of those. Maybe two, maybe even three. Can you imagine it? If you could imagine that group around the table, given that which is the directorship of the planet, can you imagine what they would bring? Number one, they remember everything. They remember why war doesn't work. Because they've lived so long and there are so many of them. They don't forget it like you have. They remember what doesn't work, and the collective and the esoterics, the eclecticness of who they are comes together for solutions that are elegant and beautiful and make sense and are loving. This round table of souls from the past, who are you? If you had to build a list of the strength of the old soul, what would the list look like? Well, it would be long, but we'll just give you a couple. What are you an awakening to? And we'll give it to you in a hierarchy of importance, and we never do that. We always tell you our lists are going to be in a circle, and there's no hierarchy. There is this time. Look at it and remember it. And then you'll understand the importance of the strength of the old soul. The greatest strength in this list, number one, they know they are worthy. Have you heard that before? There is no question, if you interview every single one of them, they know they're worthy. And if you said, wait a minute, I've heard that artists are a little dysfunctional, and you've got some on the panel, ask the songwriter who's written the songs of history, are you worthy of writing this music? And they will say, yes, it is inside us. It is our conception of beauty and God and the heart. We are worthy. Ask us to write a song. That's the kind of worthy they are. Ask the kings and the leaders, are you worthy? They'll say, yes, we are worthy to lead the country, to realm, to be kings of the realm. We know what we're doing. Ask them. Ask a master, are you worthy? They will say, we are worthy because we know love. We know compassion. We know balance. We're worthy. Not one of those on the panel is an unworthy person to be there. And they all know it. Number one, the strength of the old soul is one who has a discovery they're worthy. Number two, I want you to listen to this hierarchy. Number two, every single one of them has a joyful spirit. They have been able to capture and bring forward the inner child so that they can laugh. And that laughter creates an interesting solution to puzzles. It's almost like the laughter itself creates a coherence with all of them. It brings things to a level where all of them understand. Number two, joy, laughter. Being able to enjoy yourself no matter what. Number two, Cryon, is wisdom in here somewhere? Number two is joy? Oh, yes. Why should it be number two? Because the thing that passes untouched through the veil between you and God is laughter and joy and love. You're not going to get very far unless you can relax in a confluence of joy and wisdom in your personality. There have been some who say, well, you've got to be extremely serious to be spiritual. Show me a spiritual person who is not joyful, and I will show you a person who's not really spiritual. Dear ones, they go together. There's nothing like a laughing monk. They go together. That was number two. Number three, experience. And this is the one that will then create wisdom. Every single one on the panel, been there, done that, knows what they're doing. Did you hear me? Knows what they're doing. They're worthy to do what they do. They wouldn't have been leaders, loved by their people, having abundant countries, knowing how the economics work, having a balance. They wouldn't be able to do that unless they knew what they were doing. Old soul, are you starting to get this? This is you. This is what is inside right now of every old soul that hides, that doesn't come forward, that is never remembered. That's the strength, the amazing strength you have. It's more than awakening to light. It's more than awakening to the knowledge that God is good. It is bringing forth in an Akashic way, knowing what you're doing when it comes to producing these things that are called compassionate action, which, by the way, is next. Number three, experience. Can you imagine how much experience is around the table? Can you imagine how much experience is in your Akash? Can you imagine a system that remembers every single day of every single life? Is it possible that your DNA could store that much information? And the answer is, oh yes, that and more. What if you could tap it? That means you could pull upon experience and you'd know what works and what doesn't work. Over and over, to the point where you knew what you were doing. You'd have intuition that knew what to do next because you know what doesn't work. That's wisdom. Call it whatever you want to. That is a wise human being who makes good choices. Been there, done that. Can you imagine what you have inside you? Wouldn't you like to just pull upon that to know the next step, right, wrong, what to do, where to go? You may not know the future, but you will have intuition on what doesn't work. You'll be able to sense it and feel it and know it. just like the leaders did, the masters did, around the table. Number 4 is compassion, but it's not compassion, it's compassionate action. These are words put together for the first time. You haven't heard them before much in the last decade or so. And it's difficult to explain. If you have compassion, you have an emotion. It's a beautiful emotion. In fact, it's an elegant, elevated, and evolved emotion. If you have compassion for a situation or for another, you have empathy for them and you feel the situation. And many humans have compassion. You have compassion for other humans, for the animals, for the earth. And you can stand around and you say, I'm a compassionate being. But let me tell you what compassionate action is. It's the next step after feeling compassion. Compassionate action is compassion then with something that goes with it, an actionable item. And that could be the knowledge of how to pray for it, how to work with it, what to say to those who are experiencing it, seeing an overview why something happened, having then insight into the compassion that you would have, and then having an action of it. What to say, as I say, how to pray, how to meditate, in order to then work with that situation that caused the compassion. The masters, that's what they do. That's what they have to offer around the table. For each one of them could see a situation in a human life. Some of them were able to touch somebody, and that somebody felt the two-way connection between them and the master, and they were so appreciative that they had somebody who understood and they were not alone anymore. Can you do that? If you have compassion for the earth, you can pray for the earth. You can connect yourself with nature and be part of it, doing something around just being compassionate. Sometimes, dear ones, too much compassion will create sorrow, and you know what I'm talking about. That is an unbalanced compassion. Compassionate action is understanding and seeing, not becoming part of it, but knowing what to do. That was number 4. Number 5, self-balance. Every single human on the planet goes through cycles. And the cycles are not light and dark. Call them what you wish, but they are cycles that are common to all humans. Sometimes you feel good, sometimes you don't. There are days not to reveal anything that is perhaps secret, but I know who's here, and I know who's listening. And there'll be days even when the light worker will say, I think I'll give up. That's the lowest of the low, isn't it? And you've all been there. And then there are cycles where I say, everything is beautiful. I want to sing. I don't care who's listening. I'll sing in the car. I'll sing in the field. I'll sing in the hallway. I don't care because I am so grateful for God. And in between there is where you live. Now let me tell you something. In these few years that are coming from the middle of the precession of the equinox, there is an attribute that some of you are feeling. Those years I'm talking about are the 18 years from December 21, 2012 to the end of the precession of the equinox. That precession is a 36-year window as you precess in the sky, literally, in astronomy, through the stripe, which is the Milky Way. Esoterically, it represents that shift that we've been talking about. Now you're into the 18 years since 2012. In those years and the remaining ones, there are going to be higher highs and lower lows than you're used to. Why should that be, Cryon? What is going on? Why would this be an attribute of an old soul and the new energy? And I will tell you, dear ones, because the limitations have been removed of how high or how low your free choice will take you. And the reason is because with the limitations removed, an old soul who finds the spark of enlightenment will now go higher than they've ever gone before. A self-balancing old soul will recognize that when they're in depression for a moment or two, they don't have to call their astrologer. Astrologer, you know exactly what I mean. You don't want that many calls. In other words, you self-balance. You'll know that if you can wait it out, that the light always comes back. It always comes back. And the more you self-balance, the better you are at it. The spark says, I am self-balancing. It's important that you balance to a point where you stay balanced and others will see the balance no matter what. Even on this stage today, the teaching has been there from several of your teachers that say that others will have chaos around them and they'll see you walking through a situation balanced without drama. And eventually, after the chaos is over, they'll come to you and say, how do you do it? That's balance. That's mastery. That's you in control of you. That was number 5. Number 6, the final one. Of an immense list of attributes, of enormity, of talent, we're only giving you 6. And the last one is that the old soul learns how to create their own reality. And so they never fear the future. Things may happen around you have no control of that spill over into that which is you. You don't fear it because you know that you have control of what's next for you. And there will always be a synchronicity that will lift you out of what is inappropriate. Because the question is always this, well, I can control myself, but I can't control others. What do I do when they come at me, or I'm in a situation I can't control because somebody else? And the answer, dear ones, is the synchronicity will take you from these things if you expect it. So something happens which is a challenge. Watch your words. When something happens that's a challenge, what do you say? Well, some will say, I knew that would happen. What have you done? Oh, you've just told the universe you expected bad things. It's a tough one. But what if you reframe it and rewrite it? No matter what challenge comes to you, you say, this is another challenge. I'll get through this one too. And on the other side of that channel, and that challenge, which is being channeled, something else will take place that you didn't expect because you went through the challenge. What kind of a human is it who can face those kinds of things which are so negative to some and so dramatic to some and will stay balanced and say, this or something better? The benevolence will show itself when this is solved. And they'll look at like you came from another planet. And by the way, you did. Old soul, you are unique on this planet. And you are immense with talent. That round table is you. And if you will believe these things and understand these things, the next thing I'll say is this growth is slow. And it's going to take generations for this to start developing and you to see it in action. And if you say, well, I wish it would happen in my lifetime, my answer is, it will, because you're coming back. I'm sorry. But it's the human in the older energy that's tired and says they're not coming back. What if I told you you will awaken young again? And in that awakening, you will never make the same mistakes you made this time. Does that make a difference? And you will live longer for it, and you will remember things that will create a life that you didn't have this time. And I will tell you, you're not going to miss the party. As soon as you're on my side of the veil, and we look at one another, and we do, this whole idea you have of who comes back when and why, wash it away, because you're going to look in my eyes and say, I want to return. How soon can I return? And we already told you that the system of return is so much different in the new energy. You were told, well, so many years have to go by, or this or that. That is not the case. You can come back in months, dear ones. And some do, and some have, and some will. There are those you've loved and lost. Listen, you know who I'm talking about. Mother, father, husband, wife, brother, sister. There are ones you've loved and lost recently who are back right now. Can't you feel it? It's almost like they never left. Their consciousness is here. And if you could tap into it, and you can, there'll be a big smile. I'm back. Like they never left. The love continues through the ages, through the veil, through death, and you can sense it. Because death is not the end. It is simply a transition. And in this particular case, in this energy, it is a transition of light. Some of you had to hear that. That is all for now. But it's quite enough. Do you see yourself yet? If you don't, I'll tell you something. That's how we see you. Why would we see you any different than you see yourselves? I want you to break this paradigm that keeps you in the dark and start to recognize what's going on. Dear human being, I'm in such love with you for what you're about to do on this planet, in this life and the ones to come. And so it is.